The Home Secretary, Jacqui Smith, is under attack for claiming parliamentary expenses to cover the cost of adult movies watched by her husband. The couple have both apologised and she's promised to repay the money. Ms Smith has already drawn criticism for treating her sister's home in London as her main residence rather than her family home in her constituency. Well, our political correspondent Gary O'Donoghue is at the Home Office. She's going to want to go back to work as normal, but actually this is different, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is a really bad week for this to happen for her, Simon. It's not a good thing to happen any time, of course, but this is a really bad week. We've got the G20 coming up in the next few days. We've got a whole bunch of issues around security for that major meeting, all these demonstrations that we're expecting in the run-up to those meetings. So this is a moment where the Home Secretary would expect to be taking a fairly high-profile sort of position in these next few days. We know that she's in London. We of course would expect her to come to work at the Home Office. There's been no sign of her as yet here, but it's a very difficult day for her, not just because it's more, if you like, scandal about her expenses, but on a personal level for her, this must be extraordinarily difficult. It's deeply embarrassing. She's had to see her husband sheepishly make an apology in front of the cameras yesterday, and it must be a very difficult moment for her. I think so.
Gary, I mean, it again focuses on MPs' expenses, what they can and can't claim for, and eyebrows are raised just at the fact that we're paying for them to watch television.
Yeah, look, there's an absolute clamour now for a reform of the expenses system. Some reforms are coming in this coming April, we know. There's plans for a big investigation into them later in the year, but that won't report until after the election. I think this case is slightly different because I don't think many people will think that there can be any doubt about this kind of case. You don't really need an awful lot of clarification or a reform of the rules to know that really spending £10 on a couple of porn movies is probably not the sort of thing you can claim on your publicly funded expenses. So I think this is a slightly different case, and also deeply, deeply embarrassing for the Home Secretary. We understand, of course, that she was under investigation, as we know, for her second homes allowance. We understand that she'd been through her diary in recent days and discovered that she had been spending more time at her sister's home here in London. That would have helped her argument on her second homes allowance more generally. So if she thought she was in the clear, then I think for the time being, she's mistaken.
Gary, we're just looking at pictures of her London base, and there is a huge crowd of photographers and media outside. There was a time when a Home Secretary was under this sort of pressure that the opposition would be calling for resignation. It's rather interesting that they're most pointedly not.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very interesting aspect of it, and I think the difference, if you like, between now and the mid-1990s, when Labour absolutely made hay with the Conservative Party over sleaze at that time, the difference now is that no one's really sure how many MPs are claiming things that wouldn't stand the scrutiny of being brought into the sunlight. So I suspect on all sides there's concern that a number of MPs might be doing, if not this kind of thing, which is quite an extraordinary situation really, if not this kind of thing, then other things that might not be utterly defensible. So that's in part what's happening here. I think also in terms of the Tory party, I mean, this story is making its own waves. It doesn't need them really to ramp it up at this particular time. Although David Cameron this morning was saying that he wouldn't be calling for her resignation, but he did think that this delay that there's going to be in the inquiry by the Committee on Standards in Public Life, that delay until reporting until after the next election, he said was absolutely hopeless, and that should really be brought forward now.
Gary O'Donoghue at the Home Office, thank you very much.
Now, an armed group is holed up in a police training centre